Well, for more on this, I want to bring in now Antonios Zanakopoulos. He's a professor of international law at Oxford University, joining me tonight from Geneva, Switzerland. Professor, it's good to have you with us. World leaders are divided over the ICC's arrest warrants. Let me ask you, how likely is it that Benjamin Netanyahu will ever stand trial before the ICC?
Well, these kinds of assessments are hard to make. I suppose it is unlikely, probably in the foreseeable future, but nobody can be certain what events bring. So, it would involve all sorts of factual constellations, like him traveling to a state that is party to the ICC, that state then executing the arrest warrant and sending him to The Hague, which is not inconceivable.
But it does make Netanyahu's world much smaller, doesn't it? I mean, talk to me about how this arrest warrant could possibly change things for him personally.
Well, I think it has already changed things for both him and former Minister Gallant considerably, because there are 124 states that are parties to the ICC. All these states are bound by treaty to execute the warrant if either of these two persons find themselves within the territory of those states, to put it simply. And so effectively, a large part of the world is no longer accessible to either Netanyahu or Gallant.
There has been some criticism of the court in the fact that it cannot execute the arrest warrants that it issues. Would you agree with me that one of the powers of the ICC is simply its ability to name and shame with these arrest warrants?
Well, look, no court ever has the ability to enforce any of its warrants. We rely on other types of forces for enforcement of warrants. Courts are just people who sit behind a bench and put out pieces of paper worth writing on them.
But you don't have a law enforcement infrastructure that you would have in the nation state, for example. You don't have police officers to go and actually carry out the arrest.
But you have to understand that these are obligations on states. And even in the domestic legal order, you do not have police officers that can go and arrest your own state. The fact that Germany complies with the decisions of the German Constitutional Court is not because the German police is going to arrest the German state, because the German state is a fictional entity. So always when we deal with a state, we're not dealing with a physical entity. States comply with the law because the implications of not complying with the law would be inconceivable. So the idea that a state would flat out disobey an arrest warrant by the ICC will have very, very significant implications for that state and, for the position that it takes with respect to the rule of law and so on.
What does it tell you, the fact that we have seen some countries, particularly here in Europe, be somewhat ambivalent to the fact that they are obliged to carry out these arrest warrants if Netanyahu were to be on their territory? I mean, for example, we've seen the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, invite Netanyahu to his country, saying that this arrest warrant would not affect anything.
Well, I think I won't comment on any specific country because it has to do with whether they are parties to the statute and so on and so forth. I would just say that the statements that I've seen from states parties to the ICC statute have been very careful. They have confirmed that they will comply with the law, that they will comply with their treaty obligations, but they have made very careful statements about the fact that this is not necessarily something that is on the cards right now, because, of course, if neither of these two persons ever find themselves in the territory of one of the state's parties, the question doesn't even arise. So lots of states will not necessarily deal with it at this stage.
Professor Antonios Zanakopoulos, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us on this Friday night. Thank you.
Thank you.